not going to be here. Would you be willing to do this June 21st? And so if there are people that are not here and you'd like to mention that to them, he's going to present the same thing, first and second services, June 21st. So anyway, and we're glad that you came, sharing with us. Is it Timor-Leste?
Right.
Yes. So I'll bounce it off to you.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for the invitation. My voice is not as strong as normal, so my wife's going to help me in sharing this presentation. Also, my wife, we're equal partners. She went with me on this mission trip, so she has as much to say as I do, if not more. She has no problem talking. But it's just good to be with you all here. And Jimmy, yes, I don't assume that everybody knows me because I don't know everybody. And so if you don't know me, we live on Whitwell Mountain, so we're only about a half hour from here or less. And we have 3 children. Enoch is the oldest, then Elizabeth is, so they're 11, 10, and then Rebecca is 3. And we recently went to the country of Timor-Leste, and we're going to tell about where that is and a little bit about that country. But first of all, I want to ask a question. How many of you are younger than 35? Raise your hand. Younger than 35. Hold your hands up high. I've got to look. Great, great. You represent the church. I'm too old. I do not represent the church. Young people are the best missionaries in our church, especially the younger you are, like 3-year-old Rebecca or little 5-year-olds, they're absolutely the best. You represent the church that we're going to talk about in Timor-Leste. The majority of the church is under 35. So this is a good representation of the church we're going to talk about. Also, I want to share something more closer to home before we get into Timor-Leste, that you represent the church here in Chattanooga. We just finished 4 days of evangelism in Chattanooga, passing out the book Great Controversy. We passed out about 43,000 Great Controversies last week with streams of light. Of the 170 volunteers that were doing that, the majority were all probably less than 21. So that even excludes some of us. So anyways, young people, you are the church. You're not the church of the future. You are the church today. God wants to use you as a missionary today. So it's a real privilege to be with you here. I used to consider myself young. Now that I have kids, I consider myself a little older. Age is relative. All right, so, gentlemen, why don't you come on up here? We recently went to the country of Timor-Leste. We're going to share how in the presentation, this is a very relevant story. We just came back at the end of February, beginning of March. Let me get that little clicker. I had it right here in my hands. Yes, we have 2 mics right here. There you go. Thank you, Jimmy.
This one's, it sounds like it's on.
All right. So, Timor-Leste. Let's go ahead and turn these lights out. Maybe that make it a little easier here. Whatever ones will. We can't compete with the sun. We can't turn that out, but we can turn out the lights here.
That's good. That's fine. Don't need to put everyone in. There we go.
Let's see. We're not going yet, so we'll see what's happening here. We're still clicking and not going on.
So how many of you, I'm going to take a guess that it's very few, but how many of you have heard of the country of Timor-Leste? Okay, this is above average.
Oh, can I ask a question?
This is above average.
This is above average. So then I have to ask you a question. How many of you have been overseas on a mission trip?
Okay.
Fantastic. This is a great representation.
Okay, so at my church, that was about 3 hands, and they were all people that I had personally told where it was. So Timor-Leste is a tiny country. It's the newest country in Asia, or the first country of the 21st century. And if we look here, I think we've zoomed in a little bit, but that big blob right below, no, go back.
Okay.
Don't, here, let me have that for a second. You're going to kick it away in the middle of it. Okay, so right here we have Australia. This is Western Australia. This is Indonesia, and we at this point, yeah, we can go on to the next one.
Go back. Yeah, there you go.
So there we go. Indonesia, just to the north, up here is Borneo, and then further up is the Philippines. So if you come from the Philippines south, Borneo, Indonesia is a long stretch of islands that goes north of Australia over toward Papua New Guinea and then out into the South Pacific. Timor-Leste is right here. It's half of the island of Timor. Leste is the Portuguese word for east. Timor is incidentally the Indonesian word for east. So the island means east. That's the name. Or in the local language, it means island, Timor of the rising sun. So east. So in Timor-Leste, there's a little over 1 million people. It's a former Portuguese colony. In the 1600s, the Portuguese came and liked the sandalwood trees that grew all over the island. And so they cut them down and sold them back in Europe and colonized the island of, specifically the eastern part of the island of Timor. The rest of Indonesia was largely colonized by the Dutch, so there was a very different feel to Timor-Leste. The tribes were different, the colonial power was different, and so it is very different and distinct from Indonesia, even though it is literally just a little part completely surrounded by the islands of Indonesia. In 1975, the Portuguese left, and for 5 days, was it? Timor-Leste was an independent nation. It was a very exciting 5 days, and then the Indonesians arrived. And what followed was over 25 years.
Meaning they arrived by force.
By force.
Their military was coming to take over the country.
And there was some fear that Timor-Leste would become communist. So the Indonesians used that as a justification to occupy the country for over 25 years. It was brutal. Of about a third of the population died in that
So out of a
occupation.
population of 700,000, they killed 250,000, so they killed 250,000 of them.
And so that was a very, very difficult and difficult past for the country of Timor-Leste. In 2002, they became an independent nation, a democratic nation, and that is what they are today. They're very proud of their country, their heritage. They're very patriotic, and very thankful, and for the level of freedom that they now have. Timor-Leste is Catholic. In fact, other than the Vatican, which is in Rome, where the Pope lives, it is the most Catholic place in the world by population. 98%.
97%. Yeah.
Catholic. And their Catholicism is tied to their patriotism, because the Catholic Church was one of the big forces that helped them overcome the Indonesians. And so they are very...
To be Catholic is to be Timorese.
To be Timorese is to be Catholic. They're they're tied together very closely. The official language of Timor-Leste is Portuguese and Tetun, but nobody speaks Portuguese.
And they don't want to speak
Well,
Portuguese.
some do,
but not the young generation.
The younger
Not your age.
Portuguese, a lot of the older people that worked in the Portuguese government used Portuguese, and they're still, I guess, out of respect for whatever one of the languages was Portuguese. But as in most of the world, the language that a lot of them would like to learn is English. English or Korean, or both languages that are very... they're motivated to learn because those would provide potential to immigrate to somewhere where they have a slightly better chance of getting jobs. The economy is not great.
Well, as an understatement.
It is the poorest country in Asia. While everyone else was developing, they were fighting a war for their
freedom
existence, and so they do not have a lot of the resources that other places have. They do have oil that is in the ocean, and they share that with Australia, kind of split the profits with them on that, and that is the main thing that keeps the country founded, running. Coffee is a major crop export as well. But other than that, there is very little industry, very little exports. Everybody works. Everybody's trying to do something. Everywhere you go, there's a little shop, or outside of every house, it seemed like to me, there was some little stand where someone was trying to sell something. But they're selling to other people that are poor, and so there's not a lot of money to be made doing that. But they are a very optimistic country and extremely friendly. There is, particularly toward their relationship to Westerners is very positive. They very much like it when foreigners come. They don't have a lot of tourism, and so they haven't had to deal with some of the nonsense that that Western people do on vacation. And so it's still very
undeveloped. Let me give you a picture. How many of you have been to the Chattanooga airport? The Chattanooga airport is extremely advanced compared to their international airport. And in fact, the flights, there's one flight a day, and they only land in a day because
there's one flight
a
a day
day from Australia. That's where we flew from. And there's one flight a day from Bali. But because the airport is not advanced enough to handle flights during the night, there's one flight a day during the day to get to the country. And on the flight from Australia, there was only 12 of us on a large plane. No one goes to Timor-Leste, by and large.
There's about 10 visitors a day. And most of them work for some kind of non-government organization
trying to help
doing
the country.
Development or relief. But that's Timor-Leste. It was an incredible place to visit. Incredible people. We were just very blessed.
One of the, fortunately, they are relatively, if they can afford food, they eat healthy, meaning they survived on root crops in the jungle or in the mountains. Mountains, I mean, you think the mountains here are high. We live at 2,100 feet. The mountains there are from like 2,000 to 9,000 feet. So to go anywhere is like to drive on Suck Creek Road or Doss Mountain Road. But that would be constantly, constantly.
It just comes, the mountains come right up out of the sea.
Right
so
on the,
very
right on
little flat land, very little farmland. There is some.
Yeah, so you have maybe, you can see maybe a mile, and then it's just constant mountains across the entire island. So that one picture you can see, you might not recognize it. They have a lot of tofu. It's very easy to get tofu
that's
in that country.
Tempeh and tofu.
Tempeh is another version of
vegetables.
tofu.
That's poor man's meat. It's cheaper than
if you've been on overseas trips, you realize that transportation is all crowded inside of a van. So my wife quickly learned how to ride in the microjet with many other people. That was the only thing that was cheap in the country. They used the US dollar, but by and large, everything, the cost of living we found to be higher than here in Dunlap, by and large. Housing, food, everything, cars, everything's just much higher. But yet, if you can imagine,
there's exceptions. There's some things that are
out
really
in the jungles,
cheap.
they can learn how to survive.
There's some things that are cheap and some things that are expensive, and it's really hard to predict what. Of course, most everything comes in on a plane or on a boat, so that's why some things are really expensive. But
meaning, young people, if you wanted to live your lifestyle, the cost of living would be higher there than here.
To live a Western lifestyle would be very, very
expensive.
Very,
very expensive. But can you imagine? Let's say your parents earn $4,000 to $8,000 a month or less. Anyways, over there, what can you imagine earning only $200 a month, and you have to do everything with $200? So poverty is a real issue because it's hard to get ahead with those circumstances. Anyways, my wife learned quickly how to ride around the entire city, the capital city of Delhi, for 25 cents. They're in the little buses. And it's the undiscovered by tourists. So the beaches, this was a nice beach just right there by the Indonesians trying to make amends for their taking over the country. They gave them a statue of Christ. Amazingly,
from the Muslim president.
Right.
Which was weird, but they like it, so they kept it.
So this is called Cristo Rey Beach, and there was one other person on that entire beautiful beach. Crystal clear blue water, perfect for snorkeling and diving. No one goes there because no one essentially knows about this country, and it's undeveloped. We saw different animals. But the most special part, Janelle, tell us about those people in the picture.
So these are people that I met. I was hiking in the mountains one evening, and probably was out later than I should have because I didn't know when the microlet stopped running. But I was walking past a house, and they said, "Oh, where are you from?" And they expect you to be from Australia or Portugal.
Americans never go there,
And
by
they're like,
large.
America, and they were really surprised. But they just invited me to come and sit down with them, sit down on their yard and a plastic chair. And they gave me water. Well, they offered me coffee and cigarettes. And I've never been offered cigarettes before. That was weird. But, of course, I declined that. And they gave me water and, like, fried banana fritters. They deep fry them in batter and then serve that to you. So it was good. And just chatting with them, the young lady on the far left speaks English reasonably. I'm still friends with her on Instagram. So it's amazing to just be I considered it an incredible privilege to be able to be welcomed and connect with the people there. It was a really special thing.
So
And the others are the children that were
the
helping
children
me
are
bird
very
watch.
special. Just to give you an idea, 42% of the country is children. Some of you are almost 18 or older, but 42% of the country is children. So it's a very, very, very young country. So you are surrounded by children. Children just love. They're not stopped by you not speaking the language. They will just start. They hear they're teaching my wife Tattoon, and very, very friendly. They call the foreigners Malay, Malay, Malay. So if they see you driving by in a vehicle or running, they'll say, Malay, Malay. And if you get out way out into the jungle or out into the mountains, it might be very unusual for them to see a white person. So you are definitely, I should say, an unusual sight out there in the mountains. And the entire time we were there, we never saw another white child from any country the entire time. So no one ever goes there. That right there is a cemetery. It looks like a village, but it's actually a cemetery. They spend their greatest amount of their money on a funeral when someone dies. There's a lot of history to that with the Catholicism and animism, meaning they believe in spirits and they're afraid of life after death. They're afraid of the spirits. They're afraid of their dead relatives. There's a lot behind that. But anyways.
It was interesting for me to walk through that cemetery because I like to look at the dates, and the birthdays in this cemetery, 1986, 1985, 1970, a lot of people from the 80s. And I'm realizing, listen, these are my generation here in this cemetery. Of course, there were children too. There were a few older people. But yes, there were a lot of wars. There were a lot of hardships. There's still a lot of disease. And it was a little bit shocking to me just to realize how young a lot of people die.
They don't have good medical care. Pharmacies are there, but they might not have anything in the pharmacy for you. We spent time with one person who had died. The family, we spent time with them, but we'll show a picture. And then we spent time with two other people praying with them that were probably going to die within a few hours of days from when we left them. Death is a very real thing for them, but Adventists have a hope that they can offer to the people, a real hope.
There's a lot of fear of death and also a lot of fear of the dead. So they put work into making sure that the dead are happy.
So we went over there to visit.
And honored. I guess it all kind of flows together. It's hard to know.
The mission president right here and his wife, Pastor Chris Anderson and Faith. They used to pastor the South Bay Church in Chattanooga. And they are doing a tremendous work there in the country of Timor-Leste. And then this was a friend from Washington Hills College where we both went to school. She works with the student missionaries teaching there in the school, and her husband is the publishing director and health ministries director. And this is just the compound where we were staying. So let me tell you briefly, this is the one Adventist church in the country. Now, they just have, Elder
there's
Ted Wilson
two.
went over there in 2022, so they opened up a second church. But this is a new country,
Church
and
building.
the church is very new there.
There are other congregations that
But
are
they don't
official
have a church
churches,
like
but
this.
this is
Right.
the only one that's an actual building.
And to give you an idea, that is the mission headquarters. So their mission headquarters for the entire country is about this, well, not, it's smaller than your foyer. Okay? All the offices, all the offices, they all work in that little building there. Actually, that's where the radio station is, Hope Channel, Adventist World Radio, everything is functioning right out of there. You can see right there. What the mission president is showing us there, he's showing us the work of what the young people do. And since I don't have pictures, let me just briefly share that with you. That the young people are leading the way in Timor-Leste with evangelism. So just since 2022, how many of you were born before 2022?
After or before?
Yes, before 2022. I think that's almost everyone in here, right? My
After,
daughter was
Stephen.
born in before.
Oh, before. Okay,
Yeah.
I got confused.
My
with
daughter was
2002.
born in 2021. I think she's
Thought
the
you said
youngest one here.
2002.
Okay, so that's our lifetime, right? 2022. Since 2022, they have a Facebook page where they're trying to, this is the young people are trying to reach out to the population, because 90% of the population is on Facebook. They have 2,000, almost 3,000 followers on Facebook. So if there's only 600 Adventists, how many people are non-Adventists following them on Facebook? Majority non-Adventist. They have over 1,000 subscribers on their YouTube channel where they're putting out Adventist World Radio, Hope Channel, and a bunch of, in fact, the young people in this time frame have produced 558 videos. Just sharing about the message and putting together music videos and so forth. Those videos that the young people have put together, now, what I mean put together is the young people just took a little room, 9 by 9 feet, with 2 little cameras, probably not as nice as the cameras here, okay? And a little laptop, and they're producing all this content. Those videos have been looked at 64,000 times. Okay, so when people respond asking for Bible studies, wanting to know more, the young people are trying to respond to interest within 30 minutes of when people respond. They have 3 young people. And so he's just showing us there.
That's online. And
online.
then they also have Bible workers out in the field that are visiting people.
Right. But these are just all the Bible study interests
Those
from
are
Facebook.
all over the country.
Around the
and
country.
those are lists of names, not individual names.
Correct.
On
List of
each
names
district
around the
on
country.
a little sticky note.
So I want to quote Pastor Chris Anderson. He says, "We aim to inspire young people, volunteers, and media teams worldwide within the church. Despite facing inevitable and substantial challenges, we believe that God sustains the hearts of those passionate about advancing his work with the resources at hand. While our equipment may not meet the standards of a large production company, we are making steady progress through prayer and the support of like-minded individuals." Use what's in your hand, and that's what they're doing. So, one last story quickly about, this is called the Fomento Church. They had a gentleman, you can't see it, but behind that, where I'm taking the picture, there's a gate. So and many times overseas, if you guys have been overseas, you realize that there's a building and then there's a wall around it to kind of protect from thieves and so forth, so forth. Even though we found this country to be much safer than the U.S. There was a gentleman who was terrorizing all the Adventists who were going to church. So he would terrorize them at the gate going in and not trying to allow them in. And then once they were inside for their meeting, he would get rocks and he would throw them through the windows at the Adventist. And then he would throw them on the roof to disturb the meeting. And so they started praying for him. And they did a series of meetings. His name was Joseph. And God convicted his heart because he went out there throwing rocks and he heard the message being preached. He came in, sat down, was converted, and now he's a leader in the church. Now here in the U.S., if somebody was doing here at Dunlap, we would call the Dunlap police. We'd have him put in jail for doing that. There they preached, and he became an Adventist. I'm not saying we shouldn't call the police. I'm just saying God takes the rock throwers and leads them to Christ.
And if
Holy
anybody's
Spirit
that
works.
angry, they're not. It's something they actually care about, and so I'm far more concerned about people who will just ignore it and go on about their life than I am someone that's truly angry.
So this was here at the Fomento Church. The service was in 3 languages, Portuguese, Tetun, and English. So we could choose which one we wanted to listen
Well,
to.
there was little bits of it in one thing
bit.
or another. In fact, they had the 40 children up front,
I guess we got a picture over picture. Anyways.
and I counted them
That's the
for their
singing in the
children's story.
background.
And she asked, "What language do you want to be in?" And many of them go to the Adventist school where they learn English, and so they said they wanted their children's story to be in English. Anyway, but they sang in Portuguese, and the sermon was in Tetun. Are we gonna be able to watch the video?
Is the sound on there? Here they're singing in Portuguese. You recognize the song? We understood the sermon. He said, I'm not going to preach it in English. The speaker turned to us. We were on the front of the church. And we didn't need to. The slides were in English. And it was on Matthew 24 and the nearness of Christ coming. We understood. It was one of the elders. We're going to skip through this here for the sake of time. So now we're going to go to the school. They started a little church school there called the Timor-Leste Adventist International School to provide a Christ-centered education for students so they can develop a closer relationship with Jesus. Biblical teaching, academic excellence, civic duty, and service are all emphasized in a positive, safe, and healthy environment. So, mission to enable learners to develop a life of faith in God and to use their knowledge, skill, and understandings to serve God and humanity. This is the main way that they're working in the country, through young people, meaning young people and their parents wanting to have an education. Now, it started out, if some of you might have heard the history, I was surprised how many raised your hands knew about Timor-Leste. This started out because originally, a few years ago, all the Adventist children had to go to school on Sabbath. That's no longer the case, but they started a school for the Adventist children since they had real Sabbath issues. They had like 30 children in the school, and then they built this new school in 2022 with the 13 Sabbath offerings that we raised around the world. It's actually on the back of your Sabbath school lesson. They built this school. There's actually 2 sections to it there. They built that all in 6 months, which is amazing. There are now 365 students in that school. So they started with 30, and now there's 365. Now, you can't really see it, but here, you see the nationalities, Timorese. What's the religion there?
Catholic and a few SDA.
Yeah, so there's like 3 Adventists there. Most of the students in this school are Catholic. If you have money in the Dili, the capital, or you work for the government, you have some funds, and you can actually afford to send your children to school, you send them to the Adventist school.
Public school's free.
Because public school is free, but the Adventist school is much nicer than the public school, not as crowded, and the Adventist school teaches English. In English. Not just teaches English, they teach in English. All the parents who have a little bit of money or work for the government, they want their children to learn English so that they'll hopefully have a chance in the future to have a language where they can be better financially. So, the church is capitalizing on what the parents want and teaching the children about Jesus and teaching them Bible lessons and teaching them the classes every day. Now, what takes a lot of work to run a school like this, so they actually have 25 volunteer teachers from around the world that are teaching here in this school, in this one school. There, just briefly, right here, that's the first building that was on that campus. Now, just let me give you a quick idea. Campus. The campus is 3 acres. How many acres are here at Dunlap? Anybody know? How many acres do you have here at Dunlap? 10? 5? Okay. I can guarantee that it's smaller than the campus here at Dunlap. But on that campus, they have this school, they have an auditorium, they have the administration building, they have other schools, and then they have this building here, and they're actually building a dormitory for all the student teachers from around the world right now. But this building, they're hoping in the next few months, they're going to turn that into a health food store, vegetarian restaurant, and a health clinic with treatment rooms. And so they have a doctor coming here in the next few months to make that a reality. Real quickly, we went across the country to visit one of the little schools that had just started and is in need of expansion. As you can see, it's a lot like Tennessee, mountainous. We went there to this little school right here. Now, why do the children want to go to a school? Because if you go to the government school is so crowded that half of the students go to school in the morning, the other half of the students go into school in the afternoon. And so you just know you go to either morning or afternoon. And so here you can see, what does it say there? Anybody read that? Please speak English. The children have to learn English because that's all their classes are in English. And here we are with some of the children. All their little crafts and activities are all in English. And so what they do is they teach them in the school 5 days a week, and then the school on Sabbath turns into the Adventist church. In this way, they're able to enter into unentered areas, because otherwise the Catholic Church is so strong, they would not allow any Adventist churches to be built anywhere. But
more
the means of
precisely,
education,
they block the purchase of land. They work hard to make sure that nobody will sell them.
and
for
land is
school.
expensive.
It's not technically that they can't do it. It's just there's a lot of influence.
Right, and it's very expensive. Just for an example, that last campus you just saw there in the capital city of Delhi, the land was only $250,000 an acre, actually a little over about $300,000 an acre.
There's
So you
very
can
little
see-
land. People, when they want to build, they build a house and then they leave the rebar sticking out of the top of the roof so that you can add on. Because when you want to add on, you don't add on out because you don't have the land to do it. So the houses, they continue to stack the buildings on top of each other. Much of Asia is that way. There's just a lot of people for the amount of land that, particularly land that is easy to build on, that has roads that go to it.
This is the city of Bacau. This is the second largest city in Timor-Leste. That's the little school right there. They just dedicated that in 2024. I think that's really recent. That's just last year. So when a doctor bought the land and they built the church really struggled because the person who sold the land became very angry with the Adventists and tried to get the entire city against the people, the Adventists. And so, let's see if we can play that one. You can't really see it because it's video, picture on top of picture. They went from 2 members to 30 members. And that was just a short amount of time. What made the difference? The reason they went from 2 members to 30 members in just the last 2 years was because they started a school. There's 4 doctors in the city of Bacau. 3 of the doctors have their children in the Adventist school. In fact, the Adventist school is known for such good education that the Minister of Education for the country, that's where she has her grandchildren, is there at the Adventist school. So, you see up there on the top right, that is a government school. On the bottom right and top left is the Adventist school. Which one's nicer? Can you see why people, if they could afford it, they would send their children to an Adventist school? Yes. And so, for example, this village here, or close by, we asked one of the teachers, how many children are in this village? Well, we asked how many people. He said there's about 500 people and about 700 people and about 500 children. How do the children all go to school? He said they have to go over time because they don't fit in the school buildings. Now, it wasn't that particular school building. That's a village probably about 5 miles away. But you can see the school facilities are just very, very basic. Basically a metal roof and metal sides. That church was just the second Adventist church in the country dedicated in 2022. That's the locations of the new schools. And so the vision is, there's 5 schools, is to continue to plant new schools and then have the plan that on Sabbath, the school will become the church. And that way to enter into a very difficult mission field where it's 97% Catholic. Now, last, this is the missionary here. He is from Timor-Leste. She's from Indonesia, and they're here at the missionary training school. This missionary training school is very simple. Each building is about 10 by 20 feet. That's small, okay? You use what you have, and then if you've been in the mission field, that's actually nice. They actually have bunk beds that you can stack 3 on, so you can actually put 6 in your room. So your bedroom that you're sharing together with 6 other people is 10 by 10, essentially. And they consider this accommodations like going to the Hyatt. Oh, wow, this is awesome. Wow, we get to stay in luxurious accommodations.
It was very important when they were building this. Pastor Anderson wanted to make the school simple enough that the Team Maries could replicate it around that it could be done again. And so he made the school very small, very simple, just concrete buildings. And
it could be that there is staying in the tent
elsewhere too.
Maybe skip the mosquito or get away from the mosquitoes. By and large, we found that there was very few mosquitoes. I found them much worse in Michigan and Minnesota. So this is the campus here. On this campus, they just built this campus. Okay. You use what's in your hands, right? If it's very hard to get land, if it's very hard to get property, you use what you have. So what they had was 1.5 acres property. They built an entire school campus on the 1.5 acres. That's their church camp. That's where they have camp meeting, and that's where they have their missionary training school on 1.5 acres. And they have 8 little dormitories there, 10 by 20. And then that's the cafeteria and the kitchen there in the background. And then you can see kind of the palm trees up there on the top. This is Pastor Chris Anderson speaking in Tattoon, teaching them the history of the health message.
And these young people, there's 30 of them, they're all in training to be Bible worker missionaries across the island. There was 2 years ago, they had 6.
I'll wait till this is done.
Okay.
So this is what inspired me. When I went to that country, I was thinking, wow, these young people don't have an opportunity. The only instrument I saw that the Team Maries played, I'm sure they play other instruments, but in our time that we saw it was the guitar or ukulele. Can you imagine what they could do if they had a piano or a violin or any other instrument? I can guarantee you that most of these young people never had an opportunity to have any music lesson or have a music instrument. They're too poor and never had the opportunity. Anyways, they're very open, very interested in learning. There's so much more to learn. You have to understand that they come from a background that 40% of the population does not read and write. So maybe they never even had an opportunity to even learn how to read or write if they're the older generation. Here they are having a prayer of dedication. They just sent out those missionaries on March 8th. So that was, when was that? 2 weeks ago, this Sabbath. They have a 10-month training course. Now, to back up now, Janelyn, what you were saying, the first year being, this would be 2 years ago, I guess, or 2023, 6 young people had volunteered to go out with no money to be a missionary. They about starved because they had no money to survive on. The next year, after hearing the very difficult time they had getting kicked out of villages and so forth and so forth, 18 young people said, we want to go be missionaries for a year with no money.
They did find a budget.
Yes, but it wasn't guaranteed when the 18 signed up. This year, we're talking 2025, 30 young people said, we want to go out. And so when we left, I turned to Pastor Chris Anderson. I said, do you have any money to pay these young people? He said, we have no money. It's only $125 a month to support these young people.
Each.
Young people, I can tell you that $125, if they were to eat like me, that would just cover the food. So $125, what is that? Doesn't give you any housing, doesn't give you any transportation, doesn't give you like clothes, and it doesn't give you anything.
It gives you rice and money for the microlet.
Yeah, that's true. They can microlet and they can eat some
and
rice
some
and beans.
vegetables and some tofu.
But they're willing to work for $125. So they just sent the young people out, this would be 10 days ago, out around the country. Let's go through a few more pictures. There they are, getting ready to go out. They're spinning them all the air around the country, going 2 by 2, ready to go out. So, well, we'll skip forward. There they are, all graduating. On Thursday, they had sent 4 of them into an unentered area where there were no Adventists, just animist or Catholic background. The Catholic church leaders found out that the Adventists were there. They grabbed a mob together and beat them. We don't know how injured they were, but police did not do anything. After they finished beating them, the police put them in jail yesterday. They are now in prison. So if you think the Paul and Silas story was only back in the Bible, no, it's right now today. So actually we have all the people in Timor-Leste, the Adventists, are praying for these young people that their faith and their courage would hold strong and that God will intervene. Most likely they will need to be moved to another area because we do. Right now is not the time to die for your faith. God says you can move to another area, and
they will weigh deciding whether they.
But the big passion that the mission president has is that the young people can learn tools to go in and be the hands and feet of Jesus. So if the village needs a well, dig a well for them. If the village needs a clinic, to be a clinic. If whatever the practical needs are in the village, that the young people could have skills and education to meet those practical needs, and hopefully thereby break down prejudice or become friends with the people, so that when the Catholic Church comes in to beat the young people, the community will stand up for them instead of joining in the beating. But these are very earnest young people. Their faith is brand new. They're brand new in the Adventist Church, but they're very, very earnest in wanting to share.
And there was a miracle since we were back, and since we shared about this need, there were people who stepped up, and we were able to fund several months of these young people being able to go out. But that's a continued need to pray for them and to also to support them.
So
just praising the Lord that money was able to be there.
I talked with one donor who she added up all the numbers, 125 times 30 for an entire year. She's like, so like 45,000. That's nothing. Yeah, maybe nothing for somebody here in the States, but for them, $120 a month is what they survive on. And so, yes, it's just, we take for granted what we can live on here or what's here, but over there. So fortunately, people have stepped in and starting to send support for them over there to live on. And so we'll close with, there's a traditional hut there, and there we are traveling with the young people on a trip to this is what showed me what the hands and feet of Jesus look like. As we went to visit a family, they were not Adventists, but one of the children was Adventist, the son. The family had 10 children. And I'm going to skip forward. There we go. The family had 10 children, and we were going there to be with the family because the father had died. And I was amazed that the mission president took us and the other young people 9 hours to go be with a family that had lost a loved one. Now, 9 hours, if you've been in the mission field, you count time by distance, but not by distance, but by time. Because 9 hours does not mean it was 500 miles or whatever. It just means that's the driving time. So we went there. And it was so encouraging. We talked about how the Timor-Leste, they really fear death. We asked them, what's a bigger ceremony, a wedding or a funeral? Oh, they said, by far, a funeral. They said, in fact, we have 3. We have one when they die, we have one at 6 months, and one at a year to hopefully keep the spirits back, right?
But also that the community support. We can say, they shouldn't fear the spirits, and that's true. But the amount of support and love and community that represents is significant. Here in the States, sometimes when someone dies, a year from now, nobody comes and talks to the family about that person anymore. They don't, oh, do we want to bring it up? Maybe they've all forgotten about it. No, they haven't forgotten about it. That support continuing and ongoing is something that they do very well there. I was very impressed. In fact, if you see back there, the entire, there was a whole group of neighbors that had come in to cook, because people will continue to come and go from this house where this person has died. There was a whole busload that showed up after we did.
So
it's important, and they feed everyone. So the neighbors will come and help. They were cutting potatoes, and they just boiled just a soup made of just potatoes and cabbage, and that's what they fed us with rice, and they also had chicken and another dish. But that was the amount of coming from America. I was very impressed by the way that their community comes around them. That's how they survive. When they don't have money, they live with their families. They do everything together as a community.
So, for example, if your father died or your mother or some relative, and 700 people lived in the village, and you were expected to feed the 500 people who come to your house, but you have no money, what do?
They all bring gifts.
So it's expected that when you come to honor them by being there for when the person dies, that you also bring a gift. So what we did as Adventists, because we want to do what? Plant seeds in a Catholic family, we brought 4 big bags of rice. And then we brought a gallon of oil, and then we brought money to support the family. That was our way of what? Doing evangelism.
There was 1 or 2 of the brothers that were Adventists.
Yes, the one brother.
And so the church was showing their support of their family.
They were surprised that the mission president of the Adventist church would drive 9 hours to come there. They said, because even the priest doesn't come right in our village. So that was a big statement. And so they allowed the Adventist mission president, he did a beautiful little sermonette on the hope of the second coming, but not so much the hope, on the way that Christ has conquered death. And then he did go to the second coming and to Revelation chapter 21, that God will wipe away all tears from their eyes. But he really emphasized that Christ has conquered the fear of death, because they have a great fear of death. And then, of course, we sang common hymns that Jan and I knew, but we sang them in the Tetun language, because it's not common for them to sing all those hymns. This is a lot of stuff is just still new in that country. But this gentleman, just to give you an example of Timorese, he is the chief of police for the entire district, and he wanted to visit with me. He could easily do that because he is multilingual, and that is very common for Timorese to be multilingual.
8 languages?
He speaks 8 languages and English fluently. And the main discussion he wanted to have with me is he wanted to know what is the difference between what Catholics believe and what Protestants believe, and then he wanted to know what is happening in America between Protestants and Catholic, and what power does the Catholic Church have in the United States? That is a very loaded question when you're trying to do missionary work to a Catholic family, okay? So I shared with him, I'd been multiple times to Rome, I'd seen the Pope, and I've been to Italy, and I says, I have relatives that are Catholic. I said, Catholics are wonderful people. Catholics are very sincere in wanting to serve God and worship God. But I said, there's a key difference. I said, there's a very key difference between Protestants, because he knew his history. He was talking all about Martin Luther and so forth. But I said, here's the key difference right here. I said, with Protestants, the Bible is the authority. I said, in the Catholic Church, the church is the authority. I said, I'm not going to discuss a lot. I'm not going to go into doctrines, but if we look at the Bible as our authority, then we'll look for our answers there instead of our answers to the Pope or praying to Mary. He appreciated my answers. He was a very deep thinker. I'm going to let the Adventists continue to plant seeds with him. But he knows about the Adventists because just down the road from him is where that new school has been established. And he has a lot of influence. He was acting as like the host for the whole event. That's a traditional spirit house. Of course, they're still worshiping the spirits. They're still offering sacrifices to the spirits to hopefully give you good blessings. Let's go forward here. We're going to close with this here.
Almost 5 o'clock. So, long day. Had breakfast probably around 10 o'clock today. Today was a super highlight. Unbelievable. We opened the 4th district school today. It's hard to state what I feel inside. What a dream it is to see these schools come to fruition. The amount of work and effort and prayer and amazing things that God has done in order to make this happen are unbelievable. The schools are all operating, and students are in them. Just amazing to see. Just incredibly grateful to the God who we serve that has opened these doors. He's provided every step of the way. This has not been because we are amazing geniuses here and can open 4 new schools. No, we have just followed step by step, day by day, as God has opened the way. The team that I serve with here is an incredible team of dedicated, devoted, hardworking, godly people. What a joy it is to belong to God's church, where we can serve together. And we made mistakes. We offended each other along the way. Of course, we're human. But through it all, it has been an amazing experience. So this year we have 5 schools open, 1 in Italy and 4 in the districts. And a year ago, I never would have imagined this year we would have 4 schools open. I can't imagine what God has in store next year. I can't imagine opening 4 schools because, frankly, we're all exhausted. The only way anything more can happen is if God clearly indicates and God provides the strength to do that. But it has been an incredible journey, and I'm excited to see these schools operating this next year. I just heard a big crack behind me. I'm a little nervous. It's just a goat. I'm in an area that there's a lot of crocodiles. I've passed signs that said, beware this crocodile, beware this crocodile. Man just came by a minute ago and he said, yeah, be careful, there's crocodiles around. And just below me here is kind of a little creek. So I'm a little edgy. Having lived in Africa, I'm just nervous about crocodiles, as you can imagine. But what a joy it is. I head here to Los Palos, and I'll stop and see our school there before heading back to South Cal. And just grateful to God for his leading each and every day. Jesus is coming soon. I sense it in my bones. Part of me is so ready for him to come. And the other part of me is wanting him to wait. Wait just a little longer. There are those that aren't ready. There are those that they haven't heard of the God of love who's coming to redeem their souls. And they will not be ready. So even while my soul longs, come, Jesus, come. My heart says, Jesus, wait. Wait a little while longer. So that your people can be ready to meet you in the clouds.
So there, as we flew away towards Australia, that's the country of Timor-Leste right there. We were thinking about the fact that, yes, we want Jesus coming soon. We believe he's coming very soon. But we were thinking of a country of 1.4 million. There's only 600 Adventists. That should be 6,000 or 60,000. You know what I mean? There is still such an unreached mission field in that country. Yes, Jesus wants you to come soon, but so many people are still in darkness and in fear of death and fear of the future and fear of just having enough food to eat, and this so much, such a great need when you go to these countries and say, yes, Jesus wants you to come soon, but there's still so many unreached. And so it was very inspiring to see such a great potential, great opportunity, and a great need, but especially what inspired us was to see such a young church and a young church on fire. These young people. The church started in 2009. How many of you were born before 2009? Yes, so the majority. So it's a relatively young church, okay? It's a very young church. Thank you so much for your time. Do you want me to close with prayer?
You can pray, but we still have some things to say.
Okay. So maybe we just bow our heads and pray right now for those young people, okay, that are in prison right now. God, we thank you for this mission field. We thank you that we've been able to get a glimpse of what you're doing in the country of Timor-Leste. We pray specifically for these young people that have been put in jail, that you'll give wisdom to the church leaders to work with the village there, and most of all, you'll open doors supernaturally and miraculously, just like you did for Paul and Silas, so that the gospel might go forward. Most of all, give these young people courage and strength through this experience. Strengthen their faith. We pray in your name. Amen.
If you guys can turn on the lights. Thank you so much, brother and sister, for coming and giving us that report. I do have... Go ahead.
The question about how to support. Yes. So I am not directly appealing, but I will make it a direct appeal. So what we did in Jasper is I sent out a link to everyone who asked. There's a video link, or not a video link, there's a text link, and we can send it out. I don't know if you have a group text. We have a group text in Jasper. If you want to support $1, $10, $20, $30, $40,000, $10,000, whatever, these young people, there is a Jesus for Asia link where you can just donate. And we've had a number of people have donated through that link, Jesus for Asia. That goes right to Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste is connected with Jesus for Asia, and that's how we're practically supporting these young people who have agreed to go out right now, not knowing if they'll have support. So most of all, if you don't give, all of you pray for these young people. And we'll try and, whatever message you give through the whole church, we'll try and give you an update on what is happening with them this weekend. Okay, sure. Excellent. Okay.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Brother Leech here before he's done? Okay. While he was talking, something hit me hard in my heart, and I don't know if anybody else agrees or disagrees, but I know for a fact that the enemy is keeping our young people and us so busy about our business that we are forgetting that if I die or you die today, what did you do? You wasted valuable time if you didn't help someone. So what's going on your record? Do you understand what I'm saying? We're so busy that we have lost, not only, maybe not even lost track, but we just never got in track. And I don't want anyone's life, let alone mine, to be pointless after knowing so much. I've been taught so much and given so many opportunities. So I'm not saying go be a missionary in these foreign countries. If you want to do that, praise God. But you don't even have to do that. You know, like he said, you can pray for them. You can donate. You have a neighbor. You have a coworker. You have a cousin or an aunt. Do something. You have been given so many wonderful opportunities. Share it. Okay? You have so much in your hands. And don't let the enemy take away those opportunities. We normally start with testimonies or a prayer request. And I know that we started a little bit earlier and it's still not sunset. And right after this, we're supposed to head over to the gym for a little fellowship. So I am going to go ahead and do the praise first, and then a little bit of testimony, and then we'll pray, and then we'll dismiss everyone over there to the gym to play. I will tell you this, the tables are still up, so I'm going to need the youth to help us, put the tables away so we can go and play over there. We'll have some popcorn, maybe some fruit and some things. Also, I'm not sure if it's the next one, the next Vespers that we have, but we do have a video. I don't know exactly when we're going to play it, but I just saw it, and it's Brother Francis' grandfather. And Brother Francis, I'm sorry, but you looked a lot younger then. It's like an hour and 20-something minutes, something like that. Yeah, I listened to it the other night, and I thought, wow, this is a long video. So I listened to it, and to my surprise, it was very good. Very good. I know that most of the boys would definitely appreciate it. It has to do with what he went through with World War II, right? And becoming an Adventist. Conscientious. I have a question. There was a second, well, maybe I should not spoil it for everybody else, but I often wonder, man, that other guy, was it Desmond Doss? He never says who it was, that Adventist that he ran into that they started beating, and he never said who it was.
His name was
Irvin Sweet. Okay, so it wasn't Desmond. Darn. Okay, but anyways, the video is well worth it. It's a little bit long, but it's kind of like sitting down and listening to the testimony of Desmond Doss. It was very good, and all the details. So I'm not sure. I know next Sabbath is not Vespers, but the upcoming one, there will be Vespers, and I'm not sure if it's that or something else. We'll see. But please come and please join us. So right now I'm going to open up the floor. If anybody wants to give a testimony, please let me know. We'll go ahead and take the mic to you.
Yeah, I resonate with the idea of being a missionary wherever you are. One of my clients this past week, I was there the whole day, and the questions became, they were spiritual, but they got more and more spiritual to the point where at the end, just before I left, he said, I hope you don't think I'm being nosy, but do you go to Bible study? Basically what he was asking is, he's disgruntled with a lot of churches around, and there's godly people everywhere. But I said, well, have you prayed? Do you have people that come to your church? I mean, to your house? He said he did. So I didn't feel impressed to give any literature or whatever, just listening. But those people are out there, whether here or around us. And so now what I'm trying to do is pray and ask, okay, what is the next step? Maybe I send it, how's your Bible study going? What's your topic? Maybe I'll go up there. I don't know. But he was the one that got more and more specific. Where do you go? I mean, it was I didn't prime anything. He was asking everything. So just be aware that God has people out there for you.
Oh, yeah, he will open up the doors, that's for sure. Anybody else want to share a testimony? Yes, sir. Thank you. You cannot tell me God hasn't done some miraculous things in your life.
I'm glad that our hornets are gone
Yay!
in the tree, because there's hornets in the tree, and Daddy actually put fire in there, and I'm glad that the tree didn't burn up.
But the hornets burned up. And how's your finger, sir? Did it break? A little better. It didn't break. Yay. Okay.
So me and our entire family went to Streams of Light mission trip in Chattanooga, and that was giving out great conversations. And also, doing that, you would also ask for Bible studies, like South Bay would follow up on the Bible studies. So me and my mom, it's the second day of the mission trip, first day for us because we're local, so we went on the second day, which a lot of people did. And we came in, went out and about like the last house, and then we were going to go have lunch. And we go to the house, I knock on the door, lady opens up and says, "Come in." So that was already a little bit unusual because people don't just open the door and just say, "Come in." So she took the book, we talked with her, and she loves gardening. That's what our family likes doing too. So we went in the backyard, and then I saw some sticks because the trees surround her backyard because it's a neighborhood like that. So I start picking up the sticks, we pray with her, and it was the first Bible study of the day. So
Wow.
it was just really great, and talked with her for 15 minutes, just a really great experience. And she was looking for a church, and looking for a church can be a scary thing. So she signed up for Bible studies, and like Dad said, those Bible studies are being followed up very quickly. So
Yeah.
I hope she is one of the quickly
Amen.
Bible study interest.
Wonderful.
So I didn't give the number. I don't think I realized I did not do that. But 346 people requested Bible studies. And so that's a
Wow.
lot of work for the church members to follow up on quickly so that you strike while the iron's hot. And so we can pray for those people that requested those Bible studies, that there will be fruit born from the seeds planted.
Do you see why the Lord has us so busy about our business? Because there's so much work to be done, and it's not getting done because we're too busy looking at cartoons. So stop playing with the cartoons. Are you still going to say something?
Yes. So
Okay.
I went with Band 12. That was the band we were part of. And first day we asked for 20 Bible studies, prayed for 20 Bible studies. We got 24, right? 24. That's decently good. He added us an extra 4. But we asked for 30 the next day because we wanted to get a lot of Bible studies, right? So it's a decently big band. We got that. We got 30, and then added a 4, and then added another 4, and we got 38. So
Wow.
and then I got 1 extra Bible study because in the morning I went with the van, and in the afternoon I went with my mom because that van went to a different territory. So I got 1 in the afternoon, 2 in the morning, so it was 39.
Wow. That's awesome. I'm glad you're on fire for the Lord. Thank you so much.
I'm glad that I am working on making an arrow. It's pretty sharp, and I want to make a bow.
Oh, no. Be careful not to poke yourself. Okay. Now, I know that for youth, to get them started, like when you say, okay, let's go to a nursing home. Nursing home. Let's go hand out some literature. Hand out some literature. But what I've noticed is that once you guys start, we get you going